Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Another fun day, another entertaining day in the halls of Congress. Another fun little day. Started off with a great quote. By Kevin McCarthy, who was talking to reporters, after a meeting on House rule changes. He said, "I'm confident we will reach a solution. Otherwise, we won't be successful." Classic Kevin McCarthy. And well, Sparky, you're 0 for 11. Here's the thing, though. Concession. He's been given lots of them. In fact, he can't give enough. The baby, the bathwater, the spigot, the tub, the house, the tubs. He's given it all away, and it's still not enough. It's never going to be enough. Now, there's a consolation prize here for Sparky in that he will be remembered. History will remember him. Not in a good way, but you made history, Sparky. Good for you. Good for you. Now, Steve Womack, the Republican representative from Arkansas, he was asked if he was frustrated by the concessions that Kevin McCarthy's been doling out. Basically giving everything away to a handful. And he said, "That's mild. He said, there's not a word. Webster hasn't come up with a word yet." And I got to be honest, if I'm one of the Republicans that are backing him and seeing him just continually give instead of being a little bit more hardline, I think I might be, whatever the word that Steve Womack was thinking of that's beyond frustrated, I think I might be that too. Now, understand, what McCarthy is going through is his own making. He has done this. He's been spineless. He's been someone who hasn't stood on any belief structure. It's all about, hey, whatever you want. Used car salesmen come to mind, but that's talking badly about used car salesmen. McCarthy well under that. Now, some other interesting news. Donald Trump lost a couple more elections today. Yeah. You didn't even know he's on the ballot, did you? Evidently, Matt Gaetz nominated Trump for the 7th, 8th, 9th, nominated him to be Speaker of the House. Now, there was a rumor that this was going to happen, that eventually the Republicans would coalesce around the idea of making Donald Trump the Speaker of the House, which is really a stupid idea, which is why I'm kind of hoping that it would have gained a little bit of traction. Didn't really gain much attraction. Lauren Boebert voted for it, but after her performance with the little Hannity guy last night, she kind of had to kind of kiss up to Trump a little bit. Can you believe where we are, though? I mean, honestly, can you believe that this is where we are? And the answer is yes, because this was predictable. This is who they are. Now, Perry, my congressman, he claims that he was betrayed by Kevin McCarthy. He tweeted out today that a deal is not done. When confidences are betrayed and leaks are directed, it's even more difficult to trust. Totally unsatisfactory. I will not yield to the status quo. And now here's the thing, and this is the weird bit. I'm not a huge fan of Scott Perry. Never have been. Never thought much of him as a legislator. Don't know him as a person very well. But as a legislator, as a politician, as someone representing me, not thrilled in the slightest. Bad guy. On this front, I don't know that I disagree with him. I don't know that you can vote for someone like McCarthy because he is so not a leader. The fact that he is giving the baby and the bathwater away kind of makes you go, this isn't what a leader does. A leader leads. He does not on his knees. And this is what you're seeing out of. This is what you're seeing out of McCarthy. Now understand, he needs to get 17 of these 20 crazy people to come on board. That means he needs to stoke the egos and and do whatever he needs to do to 17 of them, 5 of which are newly elected and don't even know where the bathrooms are, which hysterically so. Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert were followed around, marching around the Capitol lost, which we can go into the whole that whole thing. But these are 5 people who, they're ideologues. You're never moving them. So McCarthy can continue down this path. He's only got a couple of options left. And that is, figure out how much more. Maybe his first male-born child. Maybe that's what he has to do. Maybe, Matt Gaetz, maybe his daughters. Maybe. No, I'm not advocating for that. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying that's what he should do. I'm saying might move, especially if they're teenagers. Might get Matt Gaetz on board. But more concessions. Maybe trade the wife away. I don't know. That's one of his offers. That's one of his options. He can more concessions. Hasn't been working thus far. He's basically given everything away that he could. Hasn't worked. In fact, he hasn't gotten any more votes by giving more stuff away. The other option he can go is he can go to Democrats. Don't know how the 200 Republicans that voted for him are going to be thrilled with him going over to the Democrats and going, hey, I need 18 of you to come along. I'll give you what you want. I don't think the Democrats are going to fall for that. At least I hope they're not dumb enough to do that. I think it's a non-starter. I think Nancy Pelosi said it isn't. We'll get into that. Or they could just change the House rules and go for whoever has the most votes, which would then be Hakeem Jeffries. That's not going to happen. Or clearly just, it's time to move along. It's time to go, okay, you're not it. Next. I don't see that happening just yet. But if this continues to roll on, he's 0 for 11 today. Today made it 0 for 11. Tomorrow is going to be more of the same because these people are dug in. Completely dug in. And they're not going to vote for him under any circumstances. I think that's clear now. Now, I do find it interesting that Nancy Pelosi was asked, if there's a chance that Democrats will strike a deal and get McCarthy in. And she's like, you're missing the whole point, man. Missing the whole point. She said it's the Democrats' responsibility to find common ground on legislation, to work on policy, to come together in that. It's the Republicans' responsibility to find out who their leader is going to be. And you go, yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? This is their problem. They have to figure out who their leader is first, and then we can work together on that policy stuff. She's like, look, we're united here. Hakeem Jeffries has gotten 212 votes or 214 votes every time. You know who hasn't gotten the votes? McCarthy. Now, in looking at Nancy Pelosi, and like her, love her, hate her, I'm not a huge fan. I think she's bright. I think she's incredibly well suited to raise funds. And today she was photographed reading a New Yorker article. The title: "What Kevin McCarthy Will Do to Gain Power." I just thought that's classic Nancy Pelosi. Now, I don't know if she was actually reading it or if it was just like when you were in school and you had the comic book inside your textbook and you were, maybe it was that. I don't know. But good on her. Fun. Got to find something that's humorous in this because, as I've been pointing out, the Democrats have shown up. They've been united. They've voted for their person. They know which direction they're going. The Republicans just haven't figured out theirs. And what I find interesting is people are going, well, this is a giant S show, and this is what you voted for. Understand, the 20 that are causing all this, this is why they are there. So don't get frustrated, don't get angry. Do like Obama said, remember to vote next time. Because this is who these people are. This is what they were sent there to do. If you think this is bad, if you think this kind of division and this kind of chaos is bad now, just wait. The dysfunction and the chaos ahead, you cannot imagine yet. And as I've been saying, I think the country needs this. I think the country needs this kind of chaotic showing for us to kind of shake awake and go, this isn't what we want, need. This isn't workable. Because you know what's happening? Nothing. We're not getting anything done. And this is the angering and frustrating part in all this. Part of one of the three branches of our government is completely dysfunctional, completely broken, completely shut down. And in a couple of weeks, the staffers and the people who work in it, they aren't going to get paid. But you know who will get paid? The people causing the chaos. Because there's no downside for them. This is the angering and frustrating part. There's no accountability for these people. None. Unless you and me and people who vote, and we had the chance. Understand, 5 of these people who are causing this, 5 of these people were just elected. And that's why they were sent there. Now, the reinforcement they're getting from their constituents, the people who are calling them, going, you stay the course, you shut this stuff down, because the goal long term, and understand some of the stuff that they're aiming for. Yeah, they want committee assignments, and yeah, they want more power and more powerful committee positions and subcommittee positions, and yeah, they want trips and better offices, and they want all stuff to enrich themselves, but they also want the power to shut things down with just a handful of people. Like the Senate has. One person can shut the whole thing down. One person can filibuster. Everything stops. That's what they want to do. They want to be able to stop whatever. Because understand, in August isn't too far down the road, we're going to have another one of those wonderful debt ceiling fights. That's coming. Hooray. They want to be able to use that again as a bludgeon. They want to be able to use that again as a hostage tool. They want to be able to do that to be able to extract whatever pound of flesh they want. And we know what that is. They're going to go after, we're going to go get those IRS agents so that they don't go after the rich people. We're going to stop funding education and healthcare, and we're going to shut down the infrastructure bills and stuff. We're going to do bad stuff. And again, this is what you voted for. So don't be angry. Don't look away. Yes, it is the House Republican sad face clown show. Get your popcorn, get a front row seat, and watch. Because this is what our democracy has devolved into. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Oh, the fun, the entertainment. And again, remember, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. You think these 20 are bad now? Oh, just wait. Just wait. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day that construction on one of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, the Golden Gate Bridge, began. The bridge was built during the height of the Great Depression, where 1 in 4 people in the nation were out of work. San Francisco did not have enough iron workers for the project. Workers from across the nation flocked to the city hoping to get hired. Some of them purchased used Social Security cards and addresses from San Franciscans so they could meet the residency requirement to work on the job. Many had no previous experience with ironwork, but stretched the truth to get hired. The Iron Workers Local 377 coordinated the hiring. The job paid well, but it was potentially hazardous. First, the workers had to excavate 3 million cubic feet of dirt to create the anchorages on each side of the bridge. Then the dangerous work of building the high bridge towers began. The 2 iconic towers soar 746 feet above the sea. The dense fog on the bay made made the work all the more slippery and precarious. The project was one of the first to require workers to wear hard hats. A safety net was rigged beneath the workers in case they fell. 19 men fell into the net and lived to tell the tale. They called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club. Others were not so lucky. In 1937, a scaffolding collapsed. It ripped through the safety net. 12 men fell into the ocean hundreds of feet below. 10 died. On May 27, 1937, 200,000 people walked across the completed bridge for the very first time. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Sometimes stupid political ideas beget even stupider political tactics. For example, a faction of right-wing Republicans wants to stop public discussion and actions involving two ideas they hate. One, racism always has been and still is a systemic problem in American society. And two, LGBTQ people are a normal and welcome part of us, America's richly diverse society. Aside from the raw ignorance behind the GOP's denial of these realities, consider the boneheadedness of their current campaign to impose their bigotry on America. Book banning. At least 50 extremist groups are roaming from city to city, funded by deep-pocket right-wingers like the Koch brothers' political network, to demand that books they don't like be removed from schools and libraries. Knowledge and our freedom to read includes the nasty tactic of demonizing and threatening librarians who resist their dictates. Librarians. As a group, these truly helpful people are a national treasure, serving the common good. Yet they're getting physical threats and being fired by these little right-wing mobs. The good news is that
this isn't difficult to figure out. It's not difficult at all. Now, yesterday I talked about the president being in Kentucky, talking about spending a little money on the bridge, the Brent Spence Bridge there. That is a major economic driver there. It's a major deal. And I said that he's a better man than I am. I said, I may not do that. Because look, the reality is you want to, your natural inclination is, we're gonna help make things better for people who support us. But Biden hasn't done that. I mean, a lot of the investment has gone into, and this is what Democrats do. They invest, in places that seem to hate them. And I got a lot of email from people, some of my listeners in Kentucky. Someone said, I heard you talk about Kentucky last night and would like to remind you that there are Democrats living in Kentucky too. The investments are important to our economy, so I would not be so callous. And I agree. Yep. Another person said, Rick, it's about time someone calls out Dems for bailing out red states. Yeah, I agree with that too. Rick, you're right. Joe Biden is a better man than you. Okay, I've heard that as well. And then on the other side, Joe Biden's still a horrible president. And there's all of those ideas. All of that's there. But as I was thinking about this and as I was reading through the emails, it came back to me that, again, I keep coming to this place where we keep bailing out these red states, these welfare states. Did you know 7 of the most dependent states, 7 of the top 10 most dependent states on federal money are Republican states? Do you know the 7 biggest welfare queen states are Republican states? West Virginia, Mississippi, Alaska, Kentucky, Montana, Arizona, Alabama. Those are your welfare states. Those are the states that when they send $1 to the federal government, they get money back. Some of them a lot more. And if you travel down into the southern states, they've got great infrastructure paid for by federal dollars. And I'm sure the folks in New Jersey who get screwed the most because they send the most to the federal government and get the least back, I'm sure the people in Washington State and in Illinois and in California and Colorado and Wisconsin and Massachusetts and Minnesota, I'm sure they're thrilled that they get to send more money to the federal government than they get back. I'm sure that they're thrilled. 8 of the 10 states that get the least back from the federal government are blue states. I'm sure that they're thrilled to have this kind of redistribution of wealth happen to them, so that, states like Alabama, states like Mississippi can rebuild their infrastructure and attract jobs away from them. This is like putting your own kick me sign on yourself. And I'm waiting for someone to go, you know what? I'm tired of kicking myself. This is where my frustration comes, because you keep bailing out. Now, understand, I'm willing to help anyone who needs it. But when we're constantly told, we hate you, oh, but please give us the money, I struggle with that. Struggling with it. And, at a certain point, we've got to start calling out these welfare states. At a certain point, New Jersey, Washington, Illinois, California, Colorado, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, Minnesota, they've got to be going, hey, what about us? How about we use that money that we're sending to those welfare states to rebuild our infrastructure, to fund our kids' education, do anything else, to burn in the middle of the street, anything more productive. And this is where the frustration comes, because I look at a state like Kentucky that continually votes for someone like Mitch McConnell, someone like Rand Paul, someone like Massey, and the rest of these lunatics. And what ends up happening? Horrible policy that is a race to the bottom. Horrible policy that ends up at every turn. Harming working people. Now, Kentucky this is one of those amazing things. They just, said, we don't need to tax our rich people. Another one of these tax schemes to enrich the wealthy. While, the rest of us, we're going to pick up that tab. And then the citizens of Kentucky, the working people, still not going to get the education, the health care, the jobs that they need. No. Because the ideology of the right, and understand what's happening in Congress right now, that's perfectly okay for the moneyed interest. They want a broken federal government. They want broken oversight. They don't want someone to come tax them. They don't want someone to regulate them. They don't want someone looking over their shoulder. They don't want someone protecting workers. They don't want someone protecting consumers or citizens. They don't want any of that. What they want is they want control. Unfettered control. None of those pesky job-killing regulations. Oh, the same jobs that don't pay a living wage, the same jobs that haven't kept up with the rate of inflation, the same jobs that people have 2, 3, 4 of just to make ends meet. Oh, yeah, that. But I'm hoping at some point we address this. Where's Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and Marjorie? I guess she's down to 2 names. I guess the ex-husband said she can't use the last name anymore. So Marjorie, 2 names. Are they going to start going, hey, the welfare states we're from, we're going to give all that money back? Is that going to ever happen? Of course it's not. Because they've got it good. No consequences. No consequences whatsoever. Got to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find yours, you will find ours. From iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1804. That was the day Ohio became the first non-slave-holding state to enact a series of black codes. Ohio had previously been a part of the Northwest Territory, which barred slavery in 1787. When Ohio entered the Union in 1803, its Constitutional Convention had established the previous November that slavery would not exist in the state. But delegates were split evenly regarding black suffrage and ultimately voted to disenfranchise African Americans. Several months later, Ohio caved to pressure from the nearby slaveholding states of Kentucky and Virginia. The state enacted codes to restrict immigration of free blacks and runaway slaves. In order to settle and work in Ohio, blacks had to present a certificate of freedom, register, and pay a registration fee. The black codes also enforced compliance with fugitive slave laws and set a precedent for neighboring northern states to develop their own. The codes became more oppressive in 1807, when they were amended to also require a $500 good behavior surety bond as a requirement for residents. Despite this and other restrictive measures, the black population of Ohio grew annually, as blacks escaped north to freedom by following the Ohio River and Underground Railroad in the state and neighboring Pennsylvania. Abolitionism as a movement began in the state as early as the 1820s, when John Rankin moved to Ripley, Ohio, to join the anti-slavery communities and establish his home as a beacon of safety for blacks escaping the South. The movement gained steam in the 1830s with the founding of the Ohio Anti-Slavery Society, the newspaper The Philanthropist, and Oberlin College. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Sometimes stupid political ideas beget even stupider political tactics. For example, a faction of right-wing Republicans wants to stop public discussion and actions involving two ideas they hate. One, racism always has been and still is a systemic problem in American society. And two, LGBTQ people are a normal and welcome part of us, America's richly diverse society. Aside from the raw ignorance behind the GOP's denial of these realities, consider the boneheadedness of their current campaign to impose their bigotry on America. Book banning. At least 50 extremist groups are roaming from city to city, funded by deep-pocket right-wingers like the Koch brothers' political network, to demand that books they don't like be removed from schools and libraries. Worse, their open assault on knowledge and our freedom to read includes the nasty tactic of demonizing and threatening librarians who resist their dictates. Librarians. As a group, these truly helpful people are a national treasure, serving the common good. Yet they're getting physical threats and being fired by these little right-wing mobs. The good news is that local folks are rising up against the book banners. For example, when two high school girls in Leander, Texas, asked to check out a few books from their library, they were stunned to learn that the school district had banned all the titles they requested. Students had not been informed of this censorship, much less consulted. Rather than whine, the two feisty girls organized the Banned Book Club in their school, reading prohibited titles as a group, then meeting twice a month to discuss the books, including the ban. This is Jim Hightower saying, to get more information and to fight this right-wing repression, contact American Library Association, ALA.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the Washington Journal editorial page, I think hit the nail right on the head. Ask the question, who's crazy enough to be Republican Speaker? And honestly, who wants the job? I mean, the fact that Kevin McCarthy has sat there and gotten beaten down 11 times, at some point you just go, screw it, you're on your own, guys. Find someone else to be your whipping boy. But so soulless, so seeking of power, never going to do. I don't think he's ever going to do that. But we will find out. But the question is, who would want the job? And here to share some thoughts on that front, I've asked Bill Scheer to come talk with us. Bill is a political writer over at Washington Monthly, also a contributor at Politico. You can check out his website, shareable.com. Bill, thanks for taking time for us.
Always wonderful to talk to you.
So, you enjoying the chaos? The predictable chaos? Are we enjoy? Let's start there. For you, was this predictable?
I'd say yes. I mean, I wasn't, tossing off public predictions, but it did seem to me running up that you had 5 people at least who were explicit and said they were not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy. I mean, it can be tricky to sometimes to tell, who's blustering and who means it. But this is a party that has incentivized intra-party warfare. There's not a lot of political cost to be paid by waging war against each other. They've had Donald Trump setting the tone, setting the pace for that for a long time. So the only way that someone can be made to climb down in that situation is to undercut them politically at home, publicly humiliate them and shame them so they feel like they are hurting themselves. But I see no evidence that they're being hurt by this at home. So when they say we're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy, I tend to believe they're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy, and they've proven themselves, 11 times up to this point.
No matter how much he concedes, no matter how much he gives away, no matter how much he, how much they're able to extract out of him, it's never going to be enough.
Well, I've been having this discussion with some folks on social media. I mean, it can be difficult to read minds. I mean, you can't do it perfectly from the outside, of course. But my sense of it is that there are policy things that these folks care about. They and I think first and foremost they want to have budget negotiations where they have a speaker willing to shut down the government and breach the debt limit. They want to take things that far. Now, we had folks who took these things hostages in the past, but perhaps at bottom some actual reticence for shooting the hostage, particularly the debt limit.
Right.
We have not actually breached the debt limit. We have not defaulted on our debt and caused a global economic meltdown by jeopardizing the full faith and credit of the United States. I think at least 5 of these folks in the McCarthy opposition pool are quite willing to breach the debt limit and want someone willing to take things that far. And they don't trust Kevin McCarthy to be that person. So they can get all the concessions in the world. They've asked for things like, first and foremost, they want the ability to have a motion to vacate the speaker, which is a way to fire the speaker. One person can have can force the vote.
Right.
Then you have to have the votes. But of course, if only 5 of them show up to deny McCarthy the vote at that point, and Democrats don't bail him out, then he's fired. So that sword will be hanging over his head the whole time if they don't do what they want him to do. So you might say, well, look, he's given you that concession. If he doesn't play the debt limit game the way you want to play it, you can fire him. But they can logically say, well, yeah, but I'd still rather have someone else so I don't have to force them to do it. I want someone who I know is going to do it with full desire and intent, and I have the means to get that. I have the votes to deny Kevin McCarthy, and why should I give away power that I have? You probably saw the Sean Hannity,
I did,
Lauren Baber interview, and Sean Hannity is bashing her. Well, they have 201 and you have 20. Why should he withdraw? To be frank, this is the same debate that happened with the Democrats when Bernie Sanders was saying, we have 48 and you, Manchin and Sinema are just 2. Why are you being so unfair? Guess what? They had the power. They had the determining votes. So Manchin all by his lonesome would say, too bad, kids, my way or the highway. This is the same situation right now. Babert, Gates, Good, Biggs, Rosendale. I mean, other folks might take a deal from McCarthy, but if those 5 say, we don't want to budge, they don't have to budge. If they want to deny McCarthy, they get to deny McCarthy, unless Republicans partner with Democrats. That's the only way to take away their power. It's the only way to take away their power is to partner with Democrats, which most Republicans are saying they're not willing to do. So they are giving them power. They're complaining about it, but they're giving them the power that they have.
Yeah, and look, I think Nancy Pelosi said there's no way that they're going to bail them out either. I think she said something along the lines of, we will work together on policy and do all that stuff, but they got to figure out who their leader is first. Which I about time they stop bailing them out.
Well, Democrats shouldn't just bail out McCarthy for the heck of it, and Democrats probably should never give McCarthy the votes. Period.
Never.
But if Republicans can't get their act together, and a group of Republicans say, "Hey, Democrats, let's go in on a different person, a Republican, but someone who will not shut down the government, will put a motion on the floor to raise the debt limit, And I would say if a bill passes the Senate, that bill comes over to the House for a vote. It might get amended, but we have a vote on it. We don't just bottle up the way Republicans did with immigration reform in 2013. I think that would be that is a net gain for Democrats. One net gain for the country because we won't have a freaking debt limit crisis.
Right.
For number one, and number two, it means that the Congress can function. If there is a bipartisan deal in the Senate, where it gets 60 votes, it gets some kind of vote in the House and maybe gets to Biden's desk, and it's not just guaranteed gridlock for the next 2 years. That is a net gain for Democrats.
Well, I mean, we've seen it in Ohio. We saw it in Pennsylvania. They've got consensus speakers in both of their houses that I don't think anybody thought was possible before. Maybe this is the way forward. I think I talked about it yesterday. Ro Khanna has come out with a couple of names: Mike Gallagher, Brian Fitzpatrick from Philadelphia, as that possible person as a moderate Republican to come in and be that speaker.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy's trust quotient is so low that I don't think Democrats could ever make him the person. But I think there are lots of people, particularly folks who are in the Problem Solvers Caucus, Don Bacon, Fitzpatrick. These are people that Democrats could work with and feel like, okay, I trust you don't want to have a debt limit crisis. I trust if there is a bipartisan deal in the Senate, you want to see something happen in the House because you're in the Problem Solvers Caucus and you voted for some of those things over the past 2 years. That's where I think there would be some potential for an agreement. But again, if most Republicans are saying we don't want to do that, I mean, then there's no deal. But that means you're going to have 10, 20, 30, 40 votes for speaker until they figure it out. And it probably means doing what the Never Kevins want, which is having a very weak speaker who they can fire at will.
Yeah, but the Democrats just need, down the road, and I'm not advocating for this at any point right now, but down the road, all they really need is 4 votes.
On which side?
If they're going to help, craft like a Brian Fitzpatrick, which I don't know would be a horrible choice. You pulled him. They've got 214. You need 4 more to get to 218.
Well, I think you need 5. Because the Democrats have 200. Well, there's a vacancy right now. Sorry, I think they have 212 right now. If that seat got filled with the specials, then they get to 213, if I remember correctly. So, in theory, yes, but you would need all the other Republicans then to be in on that deal. And chances are, if you're putting up a Brian Fitzpatrick, you're not getting all of those Republicans. You probably that's where the math will get fuzzy because we don't know at this juncture how many Republicans we want to go along and how many Democrats you then need to make that deal happen.
It's going to be interesting to see how this continues. Do you see this continuing into next week? Is there any signs that you think of that this could change?
I mean, I think McCarthy's toast. I mean, maybe I'll be proven wrong. That's just my gut opinion. I'm a little surprised it's going on this long, quite frankly. But McCarthy has a plan, which is he seems close to some kind of deal with part of the group of 20 that have not given him their votes yet. That basically has almost every concession that they've been demanding. They've been saying openly, we know this doesn't get us all the way, but it'll get us part of the way. Their hope is once they have that deal and they celebrate it, and Sean Hannity, toasted on Fox News, that they'll create some kind of momentum and put new pressure on the hardest core Never Kevins. It's that last part that I am skeptical is going to fall into place for them. So my gut opinion is if they get this deal, they still hit that brick wall. And then at that point, McCarthy has to say, okay, the jig is up here. As long as McCarthy thinks he's got some, 5% chance at this thing, and nobody else is bailing on him on the House floor, then he stays in. If he really feels like he has no path, then he's not going to waste anyone's time anymore.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long this plays out. The one thing that Kevin has done, though, and good on you, Sparky, you've made history. You will be remembered. You listen to the Rick Smith Show with Bill Scheer. Bill's a political writer over at the Washington Monthly, also a contributor at Politico. You can check out his website, shareable.com. We'll get links out on social media. I want to get your thoughts on January 6th, the anniversary. Thoughts on what the day is going to look like?
I mean, I don't know if we're going to have any kind of turmoil. I don't know. I don't know if the insurrectionists and their sympathizers are going to do anything unfortunate. I certainly hope not. But I do think that the net of the past 2 years has been a resurgence of democracy. America came together on election day to say we don't want insurrectionists, we don't want election deniers. We don't want to hand the Senate or our governor seats over to people who aren't going to respect democracy. And most importantly, our Secretary of State positions. Almost every Secretary of State candidate who was election denier lost in 2022. And the only exceptions are in very, very red states. So I'm pretty hardened by the response that the American people have made to the initial insurrection and their reaction to the information that's come out by the January 6th Commission over the past year. So, that's all very positive. And I feel much better about the course of events if it wasn't for these few people in the House that want to breach the debt limit, who haven't learned the lessons of what the American people wanted from the election results in November.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Don't you think that the country needs this performance? I mean, what we're seeing, because you're right. I mean, what they want is so much worse down the road. They really want this. You've brought it up a number of times. This debt ceiling fight in August. They want this. This is like the kid, you telling the kid, don't touch the hot thing. And then we're going, no, I want to touch the hot thing. I need to. I have to touch the hot thing. This is like your analogy of shooting the hostage. They're fantasizing about shooting the hostage.
Yeah, and I'm terrified about it. I mean, I've been on the show a number of times. I'm a fairly optimistic guy. I don't always go for the doom and gloom analysis, so I don't rush to assume that bad things are going to happen. But I'm genuinely worried that this Republican Party, this House Republican Conference, doesn't have the spine to stand up to the people who are nihilistic and do want to touch the hot stove. I don't think it's the majority of the House conference, but if they can't stand up to these 5 people now, then how are we going to stand up later? I mean, the only hope then, if you have a weak speaker, if you have a single member motion to vacate rule, you have a push to breach the debt limit. The only way you get out of it at that point is a so-called discharge petition, where you find 218 House members without the speaker's help to sign a petition. And once that's presented, the speaker can't stop it from getting a vote on the floor. So you're basically going around the speaker. So I certainly hope we can have a handful of Republicans who are willing to do that, in crunch time. But that's the last line of defense. And so to have it rely on that definitely gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, no, especially after what you saw happen to Kinzinger and Cheney. There are going to be few Republicans of conscience stepping forward to save democracy in the future. Just my thought.
But we only in that circumstance we'd only need a few. We only would need about 5. So I hope there's 5 there. I wouldn't count it out, but that may be where the public pressure has to come to bear.
Yeah.
For people to realize this is not like government shutdowns are bad, but we get over them. Like a debt limit default is beyond bad, and we will not recover from it easily, if ever.
What I don't understand is, why do we even have this artificial debt limit? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's always, in my house, I don't know what you do in the Scheer household, but when we argue about spending, it's before we spend the money. This is we've already spent the money. We're just going to argue if we're going to actually pay the bills. That's insane. It's insane to have this artificial level. It's insane to have this tool that they can use to hold us hostage. At some point, this has to go away.
Right. And just so folks understand here, the debt limit is a restriction on what the Treasury can pay out for debt obligations. It's not a constraint on the Congress for incurring the debt obligations.
Right.
So to put the burden on the Treasury and put them in that treacherous position is is extraordinarily politically dangerous, and we've managed to escape the worst, time and time again. But you only got to be wrong once for it to be a real problem.
Yep.
And if there's one thing that I'm upset with the Democrats about over the past 2 years is that they did not solve this problem on I'm a pretty bipartisan guy. I was very optimistic about bipartisanship. I think I was validated in the past 2 years. But this is one area where you didn't want to leave it to bipartisanship. You should have taken matters into your own hands and raised the debt limit to some literally ludicrous number, like 1 million Googleplex, so you would never ever reach it in a million years, and then we would never talk about it ever again. And the reason why they didn't, I assume, is that they were afraid. Enough of them were afraid that Republicans would use this in ads to suggest that they were, wanton spenders. But you know what? You passed the $2 trillion American Rescue Plan Act. You already took your chances with that. The debt limit thing, I think, was totally secondary as a political matter. So they just should have taken it off the table and have this not be a problem in the future. And I'm frustrated that they didn't.
No, I'm with you. And regardless if you did it or not, they're still going to hit you with that stick anyway. So you might as well commit the act. But Bill, I appreciate the time and the thoughts as always. Good stuff, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff, Bill Scheer. Make sure you check out his website, Scheerable.com. He's a contributor over at Politico Magazine and also the Washington Monthly. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day that construction on one of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, the Golden Gate Bridge, began. The bridge was built during the height of the Great Depression, where 1 in 4 people in the nation were out of work. San Francisco did not have enough iron workers for the project. Workers from across the nation flocked to the city hoping to get hired. Some of them purchased used Social Security cards and addresses from San Franciscans so they could meet the residency requirement to work on the job. Many had no previous experience with ironwork, but stretched the truth to get hired. The Iron Workers Local 377 coordinated the hiring. The job paid well, but it was potentially hazardous. First, the workers had to excavate 3 million cubic feet of dirt to create the anchorages on each side of the bridge. Then the dangerous work of building the high bridge towers began. The 2 iconic towers soar 746 feet above the sea. The dense fog on the bay made the work all the more slippery and precarious. The project was one of the first to require workers to wear hard hats. A safety net was rigged beneath the workers in case they fell. 19 men fell into the net and lived to tell the tale. They called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club. Others were not so lucky. In 1937, a scaffolding collapsed. It ripped through the safety net. 12 men fell into the ocean hundreds of feet below. 10 died. On May 27, 1937, 200,000 people walked across the completed bridge for the very first time. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they have proposed a new rule that would prohibit employers from imposing non-compete agreements on their employees. And I've been saying this for years. These are idiotic. Unless you're doing something that's really highly specialized and with trade patents and things that are central to a company's existence. These non-compete agreements are ridiculous, and they've gotten to be so widespread. You may remember a couple of years ago, the sandwich shop, Jimmy John's. Yes, sandwich shop. They were making their workers sign non-compete agreements. Yes, sandwiches are proprietary information. Peanut butter and jelly is now proprietary. No, if you work for us, you can never make another peanut butter and jelly sandwich again. You think I'm kidding? They actually had to go to court for this because they were forcing workers to sign these. Now, understand, they were never going to be able to enforce them, and they had to understand that. But what it was that chilling effect of the workers who didn't know better. And a lot of people don't know. They sign it, they go, oh, okay, I'll take this job, and I guess I can't go work at another fast food restaurant because they make sandwiches. And I don't quite get that theory, but it's what they were doing. And the argument is what these non-competes do is they suppress wages because it limits the movement of workers from one job to another. So if you're working at Jimmy John's for $8 an hour, and I signed that agreement, I can't go across the street to the Joe's Deli who's paying $8.50 an hour because I may get in trouble. You're not going to make that jump, and that 50 cents an hour when you're making $8 an hour is a big freaking deal. And Jimmy John's may have to pay $8.75 to keep you. And so they understand this. And it's not just sandwich shops. It's in a lot of industries, especially in the white collar world, where you would go, you should have the ability to move around. Oh, no. In fact, according to Federal Trade Commission estimates, they say that banning these non-compete contracts would open up new job opportunities for some 30 million of us and raise wages by, get this, $300 billion a year. Now, corporate America, not thrilled at all, because that's less for them. But again, it comes back to what kind of an economy do we want to have? Now, we're told, by the people who are destroying our government, that they want a meritocracy. I love that. But you look at the game that's been set up, the meritocracy argument. Sorry, you signed a non-compete. You can't go anywhere. And I've talked to people over the years who have signed these, and you go, I don't know, is a nurse someone that you can say that they have such specialized skill in your particular industry that they can't go work at the hospital across town? I don't know. Kind of makes you wonder. So it's about time. It's about time we look at some of the things that have been propped up around us like this. And this is why, again, elections have consequences and elections matter. There's a ton of this kind of stuff going on with the people that the Biden administration has put into these positions that are looking at things differently. And this is why the right is losing their mind, because, the neoliberal agenda, the corporate-friendly agenda, didn't matter Democrat, Republican. It didn't matter because they were still getting theirs. The system was rigged in the wealth class's favor. One thing that Biden is doing, and quietly, is undoing a lot of that neoliberal stuff. And I know, but he was one of them. Yeah. But I'm looking at what he's doing as president, and I'm like this. I'm quite happy with it. We should be doing more of it, and we should be doing it faster. I look at what they're doing at the National Labor Relations Board. Good stuff. As a working person, you should want an active, engaged, aggressive National Labor Relations Board to protect workers and their rights and ensure that people have the right to collectively bargain. You should want that. You should demand that. Just my thoughts. Want to hear yours? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com.
For decades, people have talked about the Brent Spence Bridge. But folks, we're finally going to get it done.
Biden promotes infrastructure repairs and upgrades as funding flows from new climate laws.
This may be one of the most challenging and impactful series of storms in the last 5 years.
West braces for another round of major storms. Plus, Republican dysfunction in U.S. House, a bad omen for climate policy.
All of those bad omens and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
House Republicans now are on the verge of becoming a total clown show if they're not careful.
Becoming? Oh, Sean Hannity, you be you. Happy New Year. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, a whole bunch of stuff happened while we were out over the holidays, and a whole bunch of stuff has happened since we've come back, and all you have to do is cover it all in less than 6 minutes.
Good luck to me.
Indeed.
As we go to air the spectacle of climate science denying far-right Republicans using their new U.S. House majority to monkey wrench the selection of the Speaker of the House is a harbinger of congressional chaos to come over the next 2 years.
Who could have guessed it?
House Republicans have pledged to expand fossil fuel extraction and slash clean energy funding, and they will also be in control of funding the government and approving emergency funding for extreme weather disasters.
Well, they're going to have a hard time causing too much trouble because the Democrats still control the White House and the Senate, right?
Yes, so that will make it harder for them to pass their anti-environment agenda.
Until they start including it in must-pass bills. But we'll cross that bridge if and when we get there.
A state of emergency in California amid a punishing series of major storms that are pummeling the drought-stricken western U.S., causing extreme flooding, mudslides, and power outages. But hydrology experts say the string of atmospheric rivers is still not enough to fill major reservoirs that have fallen to record lows or to pull California and other states out of historic drought. The dramatic swings from historically dry to extremely wet conditions are in line with climate scientists' predictions.
Those hydrologists are such gloomy gusses.
Meanwhile, while we were out, an Arctic blast brought extreme cold to most of the U.S. An historic blizzard killed more than 50 people, most of them in upstate New York, and triggered an airline industry meltdown. Beleaguered Jackson, Mississippi got yet another boil water notice as the deep freeze crippled the city's water supply again. The widespread power and water outages again exposed how the nation's infrastructure is not ready for climate change intensified extreme weather. A freakish heat wave in Europe over New Year's shattered temperature records in some areas by 20 to 30 degrees. At least 8 countries hit new all-time record temperatures for the month of January. Switzerland and Poland pushed an unthinkable 66 degrees Fahrenheit at 4 o'clock in the morning in winter.
66 degrees.
Yes.
In January.
In the morning, before dawn. However, the record warmth has slashed demand for natural gas heating. Here in the U.S., the U.S. Postal Service increased its purchase of all-electric delivery trucks and will electrify 75% of its fleet by 2026, creating one of the largest electric fleets in the nation.
Well, we're getting there.
And German luxury automaker Audi announced it is phasing out manufacturing of gasoline cars and converting all of its factories to produce EVs.
Really?
The Biden EPA enacted tougher pollution rules for trucks, vans, and buses for the first time in decades to cut down on toxic diesel air pollution. The U.S. Transportation Department allocated another $2 billion to repair critical interstate bridges. President Biden was in Kentucky on Wednesday to announce that a decrepit bridge, a vital commerce corridor in the Midwest, will finally get repaired thanks to federal infrastructure investment dollars now flowing to states from the bipartisan infrastructure law.
We can work together. We can get things done. We can move the nation forward.
Well, at least when Democrats have majorities in both houses of Congress, we'll see how it goes this year.
And finally, new incentives from Biden and the Democrats' landmark climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, which passed with 0 Republican votes. Those incentives are now in effect, offering homeowners and businesses numerous ways to access billions of dollars in funding, grants, and other mechanisms to go green and upgrade, boost energy efficiency, and save money on water and energy.
For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Mastodons at Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So while the fun and entertainment is going on, day 3 of the debacle. Hey, and good congratulations, Kevin McCarthy. As I said, you're going to go down in history. 0 for 11. 0 for 11. And tomorrow's not going to be any better for you, so sleep well. Couple of stories not getting much attention. I'm looking at this George Santos. This would be a bigger story. George Santos should be very happy that all this craziness is going on because he would be front and center on all the news. Not so much now, but the representative-elect from New York, evidently on his website, is claiming that he voted against the House Omnibus Bill back in December of 2022. Yet, oddly enough, he's only been in Congress now 3 days. I guess that's just one more in the slew of imagination, this fantasy world that he's created for himself, and that's a representative. Fun. Here to share some thoughts on the fun and entertainment we're seeing in Congress, I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come talk with us. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm watching the entertainment. I'm watching the fun there. Got enough popcorn. So, yeah, there we are.
So the thing about George Santos is he's not actually even sworn in yet. Like he's just still a congressman-elect.
Right.
Nobody has been sworn into office. So they're not technically members of Congress. I wonder if they're actually getting paid for this time.
Yes, they get paid on the first day. Doesn't matter whether they're sworn in. This was somebody already asked. Now their staff. Their staff. No, not so much.
They're going to be screwed. And the constituents, I think it was Tom Cole we talked to this week who said, yeah, we're kind of working behind the scenes with people that are calling our offices anyway. But there are a bunch of other members who are saying that they can't work with constituents. So I'm not sure what the story is there. I think the George Santos thing, I don't know why Kevin McCarthy cares about the speakership. George Santos is going to claim he was the speaker this whole time anyway.
It's amazing to me that this guy got through an election process.
I know.
That even the Republicans didn't vet. How is it? Because now we're seeing all of the stories and you're going, man, how do you, in this day and age, how do you get away with, does nobody Google this guy?
I mean, that's the big thing that I remember when Howard Dean talked about the 50-state strategy, and Chris Van Hollen really focused on how they needed to have a candidate in every single congressional race. And even if it was a race that was never in a million years going to get won by a Democrat, when you have races like that, you have people legitimately who should be doing a Google every once in a while. And, it is such a huge failure on the part of New York, but there are a lot of failures that happen in the state of New York. So.
You think?
Right.
But, I look at this guy and I'm going, how did the Republicans not even vet their own? Because wow.
Nobody wants him. Nobody wants to sit with him. Nobody wants to be anywhere near him.
Well, Lauren Boebert cozied up. There's a picture of him and Lauren Boebert all cozied up. I guess she thought someone was going to be taking the pictures. So she, kind of photo bombed in there.
Well, hell, he got more votes than she did. Of course she's going to. The thing that blows my mind about this whole thing is we're watching Lauren Boebert, who barely won her election. She won by 550 votes, and she's walking around Congress like she owns the place. And it's like, no, honey, no, you really, really came close to failing. And then she's palling around with Matt Gaetz, who's, we're waiting to figure out, is he going to end up in being charged by the Justice Department?
Yeah, I've given up on that hope. I mean, at the end of the day, come on already, move this along.
Right.
I said earlier that maybe the only way that Gaetz votes for McCarthy is if McCarthy gives up his teenage daughters. I think that's the only way he gets that vote.
Oh, gross. But what's funny is, so one of the Republicans who did not want to be named, but who is about to become a committee chair, said to us, "Hey, what are you guys doing about that whole Gaetz trafficking thing? Can't you get some more info on that out there? Because we got to get rid of this guy."
So this is an interesting question. At what point do the 200 Republicans that keep voting for McCarthy look at these 20, like my congressman, Scott Pardon Me Perry, and go, it's time to purge the crazy? At what point do they do that?
That has been this overarching question in the Republican Party, right? Like, this is what's been going on. And we've been building to this point for 15, 20 years now, since at least, 2002, 2004, since the era of the evangelical vote and all these right-wing nutters and the Tea Party. I mean, this has been building for so long, and it's gone from John Boehner having to deal with these idiots, and then Paul Ryan having to deal with them. And now, they really have taken over the caucus. And I mean, they're talking about this compromise being possible. They're never going to compromise with those hardline five.
No,
they're not going to get anywhere. I don't know what Kevin thinks that he's going to do to be able to move them. I don't know how many votes. I mean, maybe he's just thinking if he holds enough votes that
they'll get tired.
Somebody will be in the bathroom. Yeah, like they'll basically just get tired and be like, for the love of God, finally. But these five, they're never going to do that. That's the thing. And his only hope really is that somebody's going to be in the bathroom. Or somebody's going to be like, there's a guy in Oklahoma, an Oklahoma Republican who has to go home because his mother died, and he's got to go to her funeral on Saturday. But that's a McCarthy vote. That guy was a McCarthy vote. So these are not helping him. He needs Democrats to just be, MIA, because otherwise we're going to get Hakeem Jeffries.
There's part of me, I got to be honest, there's a slim part of me, and I said this last year, that I want Kevin McCarthy to be speaker. I want him to get everything that he deserves. I want those 20 people to be what he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning. I want those 20 people to be what he thinks about when he goes to bed at night. I want those 20 people dancing around in his nightmares, causing him heartburn and heartache for every moment that he's speaker, until they eventually throw him out because he doesn't do exactly what they want him to do. That's what I want for Kevin. But that's going to be anybody. And I think the Wall Street Journal, their editorial board had the right response. Who's crazy enough to be speaker for the Republicans right now? I can't imagine who would want the job.
Exactly. Like, who would dare to get into this with these crazy right-wingers that they have to appease? And the only thing you really can do is, I think, form an alliance with Democrats and Republicans to be able to hold them down. And there's no Republican that's going to be able to appeal to a Democrat, and there's no Democrat that Republicans are going to be willing to accept. So it's like, I mean, they really are at a standstill, and we aren't even to legislation yet. Like, yeah. We're what, 8 months away from the debt ceiling, and that's going to be a complete, crap show.
Oh yeah, this is going to make this look like a fun at the beach, because Isn't that what this is really about, though? I mean, you look at all the concessions that McCarthy is giving. Everything you can imagine. Kevin McCarthy's going, whatever, my soul, you can have it. First male born or female born, whatever, you will take it all. Here's my wife, please. Who was that? Was it Henny Youngman? I think. Take my wife, please.
Yeah.
No, but this is what he's done, and again, I want the speakership for him.
I know, I mean, one of the Democrats, Brad Sherman, talked to us today, and he said, I'm not actually worried about what they end up passing, because it won't matter for the next 2 years. If it's a crazy right-wing bill, it's not going to go through the Senate.
Right.
And there's no way in hell Joe Biden's going to sign something like that. At the same time, if McCarthy wants to bring all these amendments to the floor, he's like, tally ho, because whatever Kevin McCarthy's going to vote against, Democrats are going to vote against too. So again, like, none of this is going to pass. What Sherman said he's really concerned about is what is being blocked here. What about the debt ceiling? What about these bills? God forbid there's a war that breaks out, right? Like something crazy happens with Russia. What happens when we legitimately need Congress to function and it can't? And that is the piece of this where it's just like, we are, we better hope that 2 years goes and nothing really terrible happens, because there's nothing that Kevin's going to be able to do.
No, nothing the Republicans, and what the Republicans are showing us right now is they don't know how to govern, and they're not interested in governing. That they're not interested in leading or legislating. They're more interested in, going on Hannity and and on the podcast circuit and raising their star. That's not a good place for a country to be.
It's funny that you say it like that too, because Scott Perry almost missed one of the votes because he was too busy talking to Fox News, and somebody had to like drag him out of the lobby, being like, "You need to vote," and he's like, "Dude, I'm getting there. Give me a minute." And he almost missed it. I think it was like the 8th vote. I forget. There's been so many.
It wouldn't matter. He still didn't have the votes. I mean, and this is where this all becomes just performative at this point. So how long do you think this goes? Do you think? How many losses does Kevin McCarthy rack up? And also, how many losses does Donald Trump rack up?
That's an excellent question. How much of this is Donald Trump willing to allow to go on and continue to look like an idiot? Because he put out this big message saying, "I support Kevin McCarthy. All of my people need to support Kevin McCarthy," and the votes didn't change. So Trump has basically proven that he has no power over any of his members of Congress anymore, at least as it comes to this. And interestingly, Gates talked to some of the print reporters just briefly this afternoon and said, "I'm willing to go till the cherry blossoms fall," which, but that's end of March, beginning of April.
Wow.
So, I mean, holy crap. If we can't have a functioning government for 3 months or more. But again, like, this is sort of indicative of what I feel like Republicans have been for a long time, where, again, like, they claimed they were going to repeal and replace, but all they could do was repeal because they didn't have a replacement. Like, again, over and over again, they should have these policies or these bills or laws that are ready that back up the stuff that they've been saying, but they never do. They never can really make good on all of the promises that they give to people. And that's sort of what happened in the election, is that people may have sort of held their nose and voted for a couple of them, but they certainly didn't give them a mandate. And now they're seeing, what that looks like for Republicans to have control.
And this is Trump era forward. There's no policy. The fact that there was no platform for the 2020 election season. Whatever Donald wants, we'll do it. And Donald didn't want anything. They moved no significant legislation other than a tax handout to the very wealthy. They have no way of making lives better, but they spin a nice yarn. They sell a nice narrative. The Democrats are evil. We're going to make things all better. You're going to be okay, but we're not going to tell you how until you give us the mantle. Well, they've got the mantle. They've got the power. And look what they're doing with it. Exactly what we knew they were going to do.
And what we told people.
Yes.
Like, I feel like we've been telling people this for a long time now. And I think that's one of the main reasons that they didn't do as well in the election, is people are wising up to it. They're like, yeah, we've seen this movie before.
Yeah. So let me ask you.
It doesn't end well.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show with Sarah Burris. Sarah's a reporter at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Make sure you check out the work she does there. How come we haven't heard any of the election denial stuff, that the votes are rigged? How come we haven't heard any of that stuff yet? I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for Rudy Giuliani or one of those. No, McCarthy won in a landslide. They've rigged the election. Any of that?
I think it's probably because they're too busy fighting each other on the floor and slinging insults and trying to get their 5 minutes of floor time. And, This isn't just happening on C-SPAN where somebody, actually has to say who they're voting for out loud. They're showing it on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC too. So America really is watching this. And, it's like I think normal people obviously don't watch C-SPAN, right? Like we're weird because we're into stuff like that. But, America's actually watching this. Our traffic on our website, people are glued to watching this and figuring out what in the hell is going on. Because I think folks have never really seen this before.
No, I mean it's remarkable, and the thing is I don't know how many of Scott, pardon me, Perry's constituents actually saw him give his speech, invoking Frederick Douglass and the Civil War Reconstruction, but there he was in all his glory.
Oh God, so shameless. I mean, come on, man. He's so disgusting. And this idea that this is something that I feel like keeps happening over and over again, where Republicans like to pretend like they're the party that defeated slavery, and it's like, what are you doing now? How are you helping people of color now? Pretty sure you wanted to put everybody in jail for the summer protests in 2020, right?
Yeah, but in talking about Scott, pardon me, Perry, one of the other things to be concerned about is, the 2024 presidential election. They floated an idea. The Trump people floated an idea of letting the House of Representatives decide who the president's going to be. Do you see this as an undercurrent as well that's not being talked about as much?
I do think that people need to be talking about that a little bit more. And I know that Democrats on the Hill are actually thinking about that, and they are concerned about it. They've told us that, this is something that we really should be thinking about in terms of Republicans are taking control of the House. And yes, it's a narrow majority, but what do we do? If in 2024 they decide, we're going to stop this election from being, if Joe Biden is reelected, they're just going to say, nope, we're not moving forward with this. What do you do? And I think that basically takes the insurrection to the next level. And we haven't had that conversation. We've talked about January 6th and the violence and all of the things that Trump did and who he coordinated with and Justice Department and yada, yada, yada. But we really have not talked about as a country, like what happens? What do we do if this happens again? What do we do when Congress, if a Republican Congress stands up and says, we're not certifying this election? And I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously it goes to the Supreme Court and this ends up in a big lawsuit, but then you have one branch of government against the other. And so this is, it really is a constitutional crisis. They've been talking about it for years now, but it could legitimately happen with Republicans in control of Congress now.
Thanks, Republicans.
Right?
I don't know what else to say. Wow.
This is gerrymandering too. Like a lot of these people got elected because of gerrymandering, and so like these are ways to disenfranchise voters and make the average American less powerful than they should be.
And as I've been saying, what we're seeing is none of these people are going to pay a price. Scott, right. Pardon me, Perry's not going to lose an election in this district. It's just not going to happen. None of these people, Boebert maybe down the road, but who knows? They're not going to pay a political price, and I think Boebert wants to be on Fox News anyway. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we're in this spot where what they're doing is exactly what they've been saying they want to do, and it's not going to hurt them. There are no consequences for them. They're not legislating. They're not doing any oversight. They're not making lives better. They're simply proving their own narrative that government is corrupt and broken and can't get anything accomplished. In fact, that's what Scott, pardon me, Perry said the other day, that they're corrupt and it's broken, and then went on to prove that they can't get anything done.
And I think too, like there are these Republicans who are just anti-government, and they've wanted to basically just stop government from working. And so basically they've won, right? Like they have stopped government from working, and these 20 people who are essentially anarchists, they're insurrectionists, and they're trying to basically just stop the government. I think that they have shown that they can do it with just 20 of them.
So let's move this in wrap up in finally maybe a positive direction. Is there a way that this could be, I don't know, a way that people go, because in a functional democracy, this wouldn't happen. You would have, some Democrats who go, no, we don't like McCarthy. You pick Fitzpatrick or Gallagher or someone else, and put them up, and we'll vote along with some rational Republicans, and we'll move forward because we all believe that the wheels have to turn, the bus has to move. In a functional democracy, that's how it would work. Is there a possibility of that again? Maybe someday, possibly.
I think the only way that this works is Kevin McCarthy agrees that he's not going to run anymore. That's the only way that he makes the 5, that he appeases the 5. And I don't know if that means Steve Scalise or, somebody even further to the right. But it can't be McCarthy. And he has not come to that realization, or he's not willing to come to it yet. I don't know how many votes it's going to take before he finally is willing to admit defeat. It's very clear that he does not care about being humiliated. I feel like we've spent the last 2 years of Kevin McCarthy being completely humiliated, and this is not enough for him. So,
no, you've hit that spot on the head. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be much self-awareness there. And remember, this was the guy who was one of the young guns, was it? With Cantor and
the Young Guns
and Paul Ryan.
Cantor,
they wrote that book.
Ryan, Cantor and Ryan and who else? There was somebody else, but yeah, they were supposed to. All of them really wanted to be speaker, and then Paul Ryan did, and Cantor rose to the leadership, and then basically just got cut off at the knees, and now it's basically Kevin McCarthy's dream, and he's literally willing to give away everything, including the speakership. Like, he's been saying, okay, you can vote me out. I'll give you every possibility that one person can just bring a motion to the floor to vote me out. Just for the love of God, let me be the speaker. And it just seems like he's willing to be neutered just to get the job. And that just seems so counterintuitive. But again, like, I don't get what his motive is here. Yeah, other than having the title. Like, is it just the title? Can we just make him an honorary speaker so he'll shut up and move on? I don't know.
Like Speaker Emeritus or something like that.
Right? Yeah.
Stick him in the corner.
Like
give him a
special
plastic gavel.
Star.
Give him a plastic gavel.
A little sparkly star sticker, and that he can be the sticker speaker.
Give him one of those toy gavels or something like that. One that makes squeaky noises when you hit it on the table.
There you go. Squeak, squeak. You can bang squeak, squeak all he wants.
Because you remember when he said that, it's going to be hard for him not to hit Nancy Pelosi with the gavel when she gives it to him. It would be funnier with the squeaky one.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, and also given the fact that Pelosi's husband got hit with a hammer, I think that's probably not going to go over very well in the public. So,
kind of forgot that.
Yeah.
But here again, and let's finish on this, because you got Fanone, the officer that on January 6th who was attacked, sent a letter to a bunch of them saying, "Hey, maybe now's a good time to tell people to stop."
Yeah. And he's right. He's absolutely right. But he sent it to people who don't want to stop. They want this to continue. They want more violence. They want more, people standing up to America for American democracy and whatever the hell else. And it's just not. That's not the kind of thoughtful democratic value that these folks have.
Well, Lauren Boebert was on Hannity last night, and she showed off her GED education and
and she hacked off Hannity. Like, that's the thing, is she's hacking off her own people, and I'm like, damn, you got some principles there.
Let the fun begin. But Sarah, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff.
My pleasure. Good to be back. Happy New Year to everybody.
You as well. Our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out the website, rawstory.com, for all the wonder and information. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day that construction on one of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, the Golden Gate Bridge, began. The bridge was built during the height of the Great Depression, where 1 in 4 people in the nation were out of work. San Francisco did not have enough iron workers for the project. Workers from across the nation flocked to the city hoping to get hired. Some of them purchased used Social Security cards and addresses from San Franciscans so they could meet the residency requirement to work on the job. Many had no previous experience with ironwork, but stretched the truth to get hired. The Ironworkers Local 377 coordinated the hiring. The job paid well, but it was potentially hazardous. First, the workers had to excavate 3 million cubic feet of dirt to create the anchorages on each side of the bridge. Then the dangerous work of building the high bridge towers began. The 2 iconic towers soar 746 feet above the sea. The dense fog on the bay made the work all the more slippery and precarious. The project was one of the first to require workers to wear hard hats. A safety net was rigged beneath the workers in case they fell. 19 men fell into the net and lived to tell the tale. They called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club. Others were not so lucky. In 1937, a scaffolding collapsed. It ripped through the safety net. 12 men fell into the ocean hundreds of feet below. 10 died. On May 27, 1937, 200,000 people walked across the completed bridge for the very first time. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Sometimes stupid political ideas beget even stupider political tactics. For example, a faction of right-wing Republicans wants to stop public discussion and actions involving 2 ideas they hate. 1, racism always has been and still is a systemic problem in American society. And 2, LGBTQ people are a normal and welcome part of us, America's richly diverse society. Aside from the raw ignorance behind the GOP's denial of these realities, consider the boneheadedness of their current campaign to impose their bigotry on America. Book banning. At least 50 extremist groups are roaming from city to city, funded by deep-pocket right-wingers like the Koch brothers' political network, to demand that books they don't like be removed from schools and libraries. Worse, their open assault on knowledge and our freedom to read includes the nasty tactic of demonizing and threatening librarians who resist their dictates. Librarians. As a group, these truly helpful people are a national treasure, serving the common good. Yet they're getting physical threats and being fired by these little right-wing mobs. The good news is that local folks are rising up against the book banners. For example, when 2 high school girls in Leander, Texas, asked to check out a few books from their library, they were stunned to learn that the school district had banned all the titles they requested. Students had not been informed of this censorship, much less consulted. Rather than whine, the 2 feisty girls organized the Banned Book Club in their school, reading prohibited titles as a group, then meeting twice a month to discuss the books, including the ban. This is Jim Hightower saying, to get more information and to fight this right-wing repression, contact American Library Association, ALA.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So on Wednesday, President Biden was in Kentucky touting the bipartisan infrastructure bill that's going to bring massive investment to communities across the country. And Kentucky, and I said this yesterday, and I took a lot of heat for it, but, politically, I got to be honest, there's part of me that goes, the former guy, he would have never taken money to a state he lost. But good on Biden. This bridge that he was out in front of, a major economic driver for both the Cincinnati and the Covington, Kentucky area. But out, saying, hey, look, we've got to reinvest in our country, rebuild our infrastructure. Good stuff. And here to share some thoughts on Well, how we do this in a smart way, how we do this in a way that's going to help you, me, the working people of this country. I've asked Steve Knowles to come talk with us. Steve is the president of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Local 4 there in Indiana and Kentucky. Their website, baclocal4.org, if you want to check out the work that they do. Steve, thanks for taking time for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, thoughts on the president coming to Kentucky and saying, look, we need to start rebuilding this stuff and upgrading, investing? Any thoughts?
Yes, we're very excited to have him come in there and very excited with the investments that they've made, not only in the bridges, but a number of other projects in the area.
Now, look, there's a lot of investment happening, and we were talking during the break about the fact that you've got car battery plants being built. Columbus, Ohio, seeing a massive Intel chip plant being built. There's all of this resurgence of going, hey, we should make stuff here. We should build stuff. Something I've been screaming about for all 18 years I've been doing this program.
Absolutely.
So the question then becomes, how do we use this moment to rebuild and revive the working class and to use this opportunity to create the kind of jobs that your members, that working people need and deserve? How do we do that?
Well, a lot of that work is done under national agreements, and they call for Davis-Bacon wages and benefits, and that's going to bring everybody up. It's going to improve their lifestyle. It's going to help our apprenticeship programs, and it's going to put a steady flow of income in a lot of people's pockets.
You threw out a couple of things there. Davis-Bacon. A lot of people don't know what that is. Explain it.
That was a law that was put into effect. I think the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931 says any federally funded jobs over $2,000, you will have to pay a area standard wage for that area and a benefit package to the people performing the work.
And why is that important?
Well, that's important because it like I said, it brings a great income into the families of these working people that on other projects may not be able to command that wage through probably unscrupulous bidding processes that have worker misclassification involved. But the bottom line is it brings everybody up. It stabilizes the economy. It brings money in. It helps the unions because those wages are usually set by the unions because they have set the area standards, and it helps. A rising tide brings all ships up, and it brings all economies up. And that's what, doesn't everybody want? The American dream: healthcare and a great pension plan and a great wage and the ability to take your family on vacation and do wonderful things and not be strapped by economic issues.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, and the hope here is that we get this. But sadly, when you start talking about Davis-Bacon or prevailing wage, which are synonymous, politically we've been put into boxes where most Republicans seem to be hell bent against prevailing wage, and in fact, a lot of red states have gone and done away with prevailing wage. And some of the things that we've seen is when they take prevailing wage. Well, let me ask you, what happens in a state when they go and they destroy their prevailing wage laws?
Okay, it happened right here in our state, and I tell you what happens. It creates an atmosphere where the contractors have to compete against each other in unscrupulous ways by misclassifying their employees, for one, as independent contractors, and they illegally do so. And by doing that, they call them independent contractors, so they do not have to pay any taxes on them. It's tax fraud in a way. They don't pay any Social Security taxes, unemployment insurance. It drives people to entitlements later in life because they don't pay health care. They don't have to pay into a retirement plan.
Yeah, what we know is, look, there have
Right.
been numerous studies on this, and I look at the ones that the professor out at the University of Idaho did. when states did away with the prevailing wages, what happened is wages went down. You ended up losing your local construction trades. Those tradespeople went other places, sought other well-paying jobs, and you ended up getting transient labor coming through and doing shoddy work. And oh, by the way, it didn't save you any money. And I point to Jim Justice, the governor of West Virginia, who said, hey, we did what we were supposed to do. We passed the No Rights at Work. We passed ending prevailing wage. And what did it get us? Nothing. And this, again, it's this false medicine that they keep trying to shove down our throat, this poison that, oh, it's going to be good for us. It's not good for working people. It's good for, well, the very wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. Wages and benefits are the foundation for every economy in every city out there. And if you drive them down, you drive down your solid structure, you're the foundation of your economy and of your cities, it deteriorates. And we all know that wages and benefits brings everything up to a higher level and a higher standard.
And also, look, I've said for a while, Steve, and you're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Steve Knowles. He's the president of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union Local 4 in Indiana, Kentucky. Check out their website, baclocal4.org. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. But we're in this kind of moment where, there's so much anger out there. And I've made the argument that one of the things that Trump tapped into is that working class anger that when we grew up, we believed the idea that if you worked hard, you played by the rules, you got ahead. Well, sadly, people are working hard, they're playing by the rules, but the game has been kind of rigged and people aren't getting ahead. And this is one of those ways, for me at least, to go, you know what? If you're willing to go out there and work in the cold, you're willing to do these hard physical labor jobs, we should make sure you earn a living wage, something you're going to be able to support your family, and it's something, hey, you're going to have health and retirement security down the road. It used to be common sense, Steve. Doesn't seem to be that way much anymore, at least politically.
Yeah, I don't get it. We spend so much time educating the public, and we're making inroads. Don't get me wrong. We have to cross party lines, and we're more willing to do that as long as people are willing to let us educate them about the good things that we do here in the union, the benefits that we do provide, so people aren't driven to entitlements later in life, and the taxpayers end up paying for that. And our apprenticeship programs, Earn While You Learn, they're free. It's 4 years of training, and you get to earn while you're doing it. And we're reaching into the high schools now, and we've almost, in some cases, we do have a current curriculum where they can directly step out of high school into one of our programs. But right now we have in a process of getting a certificate to where the high schools start the program and they step directly into our apprentice programs before or right as they graduate. And that's really picking up some traction, because college isn't for everyone. No. And we're going to give them another path to a great area standard wage and a benefit, so that they aren't seeking entitlements.
No, I mean, here's the thing, Steve, and you were probably around the same age. I remember when I was in high school, these were coveted spots. I mean, getting into the building trades apprenticeship program was you knew you're going to do well. You're going to live a good life. You're going to work hard, but you were going to make a good living and have a good retirement. And we've been told over the last 30 years that no, we don't need to do those work jobs. We can all have corner offices. We all go get degrees. And sadly, we've lost a lot of people who have the ability to work with their hands and do this kind of stuff. It seems to now be in vogue again, and I think it's a good thing, because we do have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of becoming back in vogue, and I'm telling you what, we've worked really, really hard to bring that back after the tech boom, and all the high school counselors and everyone sent everyone to tech, and now my young daughters can do more on an iPhone than they learned in 4 years, and they're strapped with lots and lots of debt. And these jobs we provide are good jobs, and it's coming back around now. The counselors are calling us back, and we're lined up. We're doing more career fairs and more promotions and job expos than we've ever done in the past. And that's all part of the public education and the service-minded kind of person you become when you're in a position like mine.
No, it's fantastic. And so you look, and this is the other part of this. And I go back to Biden being in Kentucky. And look, the administration is doing a lot of outreach to point out that they're doing massive investments across the country. Do we have enough skilled tradespeople? Does the BAC, the Bricklayers Union, do they have enough people to do what's coming? I mean, like you said a moment ago, there's a battery plant coming in your state, the chip plant in Ohio. There's massive numbers of new manufacturing starts, all of the bridges that need to be done, all of the infrastructure that needs. Do we have enough people yet?
I'm going to say, Rick, we don't, but we are organizing every day. We're signing new people up, and we're bringing new people in, and we're training craft workers at a very high rate, and we're going to get there. The boom isn't quite peaked, and we're not exactly at full employment, but we're going to be, and we're going to be looking, but we're training to fill those positions every day right now and working really hard. I mean, this is our opportunity. The Infrastructure and Jobs Act and the CHIPS Act and all this building and construction that's going on out there. This is our time to shine.
Yeah.
And we're doing it. We're gonna man these jobs up, and it's going to be a lot of work, and it also just the ability for that work to be there is a true asset to us, to be able to go out and organize and talk to these counselors and these kids and say, we have jobs. Because when there isn't jobs, it's hard to organize.
No, it's and look, we're in a great moment. If you're an 18, 19-year-old right now, this is a good time because this is a job where, as you pointed out a minute ago, and when I talk about apprenticeship programs, it's always you don't pay them, they pay you to learn a skill that's portable, that you can leave in 5 or 6 or 10 years and go do something else, but you'll always have that skill. It's a good thing. Like my son has said he wants to get into one of the building trades, and we're going to try and get him into one of the programs there, because he's going, look, college isn't, the return on investment isn't there yet. Maybe down the road, but right now the apprenticeship program is the best gig in the box. So let me ask you this, kind of the last line of questioning, because we've been talking about the jobs that are being created. Why does that matter to somebody who's not a construction worker or in the trades? Why does it matter? I mean, why does it matter to communities to have, a local building trades, a local skilled trade? Why does that matter?
Well, I think what you're asking me is the value of the construction force in any city or economy. Can you reframe that question?
I mean, what good is it to have a local skilled trades group in your area? I argue this. When they built the school down the road from my house, my kids' school, when they rebuilt the local school, did I want a transient crew to come through and slap some halfway done shoddy job up to get it done and get down the road and collect their money? Or do I want somebody whose kid is sitting next to my kid building that roof, knowing that his kid's going to be sitting under that roof? For me, that's why I want a local trade. But there are 1,000 other reasons. You want people who are making good wages so they're part of the community, so they can coach soccer and do all of the things that we want with active, engaged folks. There's a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Absolutely. We want it. For one, we want local people doing it all, because that's part of the local economy, and that drives all small business and large business alike. There's the wages and the benefits that are in that community. On top of that, it's just a driver for the entire economy of that area to be able to self-perform and know that you're going to get the quality that these people doing the work were in those apprenticeship programs we were talking about, and they are trained properly to give your schools and your libraries and your shops and whatever type of construction you're in is being done right. That's a lot too.
No, absolutely. And the other part of this, and the other thing I like to bring up is that dollar that your member makes, that good, decent wage, that stays local. So the local shopkeepers, the local business people, that reverberates through the local economy. That money stays local, and it helps build up everyone. As you said a moment ago, the rising tide thing. It's that.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Final thoughts, Steve?
No, thanks for having me, and appreciate it. And it's been a good talk.
Good stuff. I appreciate the time. Steve Knowles, he is the president of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Local 4 there, Indiana, Kentucky. Check out their website, baclocal4.org. We will certainly get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this date in labor history, the year was 1914. The Ford Motor Company raised its basic wage from $2.40 for a 9-hour day to $5 for an 8-hour workday. Many of Ford's contemporary critics scorned his $5 day. Journalists and other automakers predicted disaster for the industry. Henry Ford implemented the wage increase to head off labor unrest in the company and to curtail his problems with worker turnover. The wage increase helped to derail efforts to start a union in his factory. The $5 day was not an act of altruism by the automaker. It was a calculated business decision. Most importantly for Ford, the wage increase enabled his workers to become customers and buy cars of their own. Ford declared one's own employees ought to be one's own best customers. Despite the prognosticators of doom, Ford's plan worked. Ford's profits doubled in the 2 years after he raised the wages. In 1914, Ford sold more than 300,000 Model Ts, more than all other U.S. automakers combined. By 1920, that number had climbed to 1 million cars a year. Reflecting back on his decision, Ford explained, "The payment of $5 for an 8-hour workday was one of the finest cost-cutting moves we ever made. If the minimum wage is increased, perhaps those who today are lining up to predict doom and disaster if the minimum wage is increased might benefit from reading this page from Labor's History." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something in your mind, email me. Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Look, I go back to this building trades thing. And look, I've encouraged my son to look into going into one of the apprenticeship programs and learning a skilled trade, because it's one of the best bargains out there. It really is. You're going to learn how to do something. They're going to pay you to do it, and then you're going to make good money while you're doing it. And there's almost a no lose in that. And the job you're going to have is going to give you a skill that's portable. I know a lot of my building trades friends. Yeah, they've got their main job, but they do a lot of side work. They eventually start their own businesses. There's a lot that come out of this. But for me, more importantly, it comes back down to ensuring that you have the local. And as you know, anybody who's listened to this program knows I'm a believer in local. I'm a believer in domestic production for domestic consumption, as close to home as you can get, and building stuff. That's one of those key things. And as I said a minute ago, the reality is I want the guy putting the roof on that school my kid's going to sit in. I want his kid sitting next to mine, because he's going to take a little extra care to make sure it's done right. He's going to take some time and ensure that it doesn't fall in. Interesting story. We were coming back from our vacation, and I swung by and visited a friend who was building a home in North Carolina, and he'd lived most of his life in West Virginia, and he's mind blown at the difference between the builders in North Carolina and in West Virginia. I go, well, you should come to Pennsylvania and see, or Illinois, and see what they go. He goes, they have inspections here. He goes, back in West Virginia when we built a house, nobody came and inspected anything. You got people who did, good enough kind of work. It's good enough. And he said, the last time they built a house in West Virginia, that his wife was taking a bath when they've just moved in, taking a bath in the upstairs bathroom, and it fell through the floor. Evidently, didn't think to use plywood as a subfloor. Not making that up. But again, this is one of those things where when you create an environment where it's all about the cheapest price, you end up getting people who are going to cut corners. He was saying, there's a crawl space under the house that they have to get into the plumbing and everything, because they don't have basements in North Carolina because it's all sand. And he goes, in West Virginia, they just put a piece of plywood up against the wall and good enough. He goes, there's actually a door with a lock, and they've actually sealed it so that the critters don't go in and out. And it was one of those things where I've always been in an environment where that's been possible, where that's been the reality, because we have regulations, we have inspections, we have people who, and you may go, oh, those are job killers. Oh, those are such a pain in the neck. But what they do is they make sure that when you take a bath, when your wife takes a bath, she's not falling through the floor. How many times have we heard the story where, dad and the kid are out in the yard playing football, and the dad throws the ball a little close to the house and the kid runs right through the house because, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They just slapped up the siding and didn't have any sheathing or anything. How many times have you heard that? Again, it comes back to, we need to have skilled people doing the best job and accountability on top of it. And this is where the prevailing wage thing, and this is one of those things that I think is really important. The prevailing wage law, and I go back to Jim Justice, governor of West Virginia, who did. They went and they passed the whole no rights at work agenda. They attacked collective bargaining rights. They attacked prevailing wage. They went after workers' comp, unemployment. They went after all of it in the hopes and prayers that it was going to, like manna from heaven, create this environment of prosperity, when the reality is West Virginia's been being robbed for generations, as the coal barons and the wealthy have been just screwing that state over with poison, with bad ideas like ending collective bargaining rights and all of that. And they sell it to us like, oh, it's going to be good for us. Here where I'm at in Pennsylvania, there's literally a movement of people who say we need to get rid of prevailing wage because it's going to lower the cost. It's going to lower the cost. I love this. Oh, I love this. It's going to lower the cost of building a school by 25%. I've actually had someone on this program several years ago. No, it's going to save 25% of the cost of that school by just doing away with this prevailing wage thing. And I'm going, you do realize the majority of the cost in building a school is in materials, right? And in architectural work and all of that. The labor costs like about 20 to 23%. So if I'm getting your numbers right, to save 25% on building that school, those workers would literally have to pay you for the privilege to work on that project, if your math is right. Because again, it's the poison they keep pushing us. Now, what he meant to say, and I know what he meant to say, by cheating those workers out of that prevailing wage, we can cut their wages by 25%. We can cut what goes into their pockets and in their paychecks and into their families and into their local communities by 25%. That's what he meant to say, but without saying it. That's one of those moments where you don't say the quiet thing out loud, but you still want to say it. Oh, we're going to save all this money. Oh, well, where does that money come from? Oh, that's right. It comes from the workers' pockets. It comes from the community's pockets. Because understand, that money that worker puts in his pocket locally, he spends locally. That's right. Goes to the little town square. And we've seen this. There have been numerous studies out there. This is irrefutable. They spend the money locally. It reverberates in the local economy. And you have a snowball effect of good things. When you steal that 25%, you take money away from people, what do you think happens? That's right, the other side. Yeah, it goes the other way. This is, again, why we need to fight for these things and expand prevailing wage protections to more working people. Just my thoughts. But again, you got to give them credit. They keep trying to screw over working people, and sadly, some of us keep buying it. I hope you're not one of them. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you got a defense, I want to hear it. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, download the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours, from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. That's where we'll be found. Great to be back. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.